the other Mike team, Mike Tomlin, obviously out of Pittsburgh. The Steelers rarely have to find a new head coach, but they've always gotten it right. They had Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and obviously then Mike Tomlin. So how do you expect them to approach it this time?
Oh, I think they're going to take a long view of this, and I think they're going to interview a whole bunch of people relative to some that have never coached before, and then some have coached before. And when you look at, you mentioned Bill Cowher, you mentioned Mike Tomlin. They were young coaches, never been head coaches before on the defensive side of the ball. So when we think about people that could fit that criteria, Christine, you think about Jesse Minter, who's with the Chargers. You think about Jeff Hafley, who's with Green Bay, former head coach at Boston College. Chris Shula, obviously the grandson of the legendary head coach. So if they go that direction in terms of Cowher and Tomlin, those are candidates to me that fit that mold. And then the next three, to me, are the bottom three are really interesting. Kevin Stefanski, Vance Joseph, Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator there, but those three guys have all been head coaches. So if they say, hey, you know what, we have some pieces here, especially on defense, we want some stability, let's go a little bit more experience, that's the bottom three. But those top four are very, very similar to Mike Tomlin and Bill Cowher in terms of what they had done before they became the head coach of the Steelers.
Okay, so the Steelers looking for their new head coach. There's a number of head coaching vacancies, obviously, across the NFL. It's 30 days until Valentine's Day, so I need Mike the matchmaker to help us decide the perfect pairings available for head coaches. Let's start with John Harbaugh in Atlanta. Do you love it, like it, or loathe it?
Okay, here we go. If we're talking about John Harbaugh with the Falcons, Christine, I absolutely love it. He would come in and be paired with Michael Penix, assuming he was healthy, with all these great young players, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Jalen Walker, James Pierce, Xavier Watts. He gives them stability and credibility. And if Michael Penix is healthy with John Harbaugh, they could win the division next year.
Okay, I like your use of the emoji, by the way. How about Kevin Stefanski replacing Harbaugh in Baltimore?
Well, we're talking about, like Valentine's Day and loving things. Can we give it a double heart?
Oh my gosh, how cute.
Look, I love Kevin Stefanski, but I love him with Lamar Jackson. What he did with Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, got him the head coaching job in Cleveland. We know about the quarterback situation in Cleveland. Put him with Lamar Jackson. I think that's an absolute home run. Okay,
by the way, Valentine's Day also your birthday?
It is.
It is.
Kids, 30 shopping days left.
Okay, we'll work on it.
That's an impressive job. It brings us back to the NFL. Look at this list. All of these. This is 9 teams in the National Football League that currently do not have head coaches. There are only 32 in the league. 9 of them don't have coaches. The Cincinnati Bengals are the only team in the AFC North that have a coach as we speak. So we've talked a lot about Mike Tomlin and his future and what it's going to look like. And we've talked a lot about the Steelers and their future and what it's going to look like. Where are we on this coaching carousel right now? I feel, sitting where I'm sitting, I feel like the world is waiting on 2 things. Some resolution in Green Bay and Harbaugh, right? Harbaugh's going to make, but I think he's waiting on resolution in Green Bay because if Matt LaFleur winds up out in Green Bay, maybe that's the job Harbaugh wants.
We are in wait-and-see mode still if LaFleur is going to get an extension or we'll be told, hey, this is the end of the road here. That is still something that's in play. Harbaugh's interesting. I could tell you that he's had conversations now with multiple teams. Obviously, the Falcons, they announced that they had an interview, and then every other team ran out there and said, we've spoken to him too, we've got... I would think the Giants and Harbaugh makes a lot of sense right now, but Tennessee has become things that I've heard in league circles that there's some interest and mutual interest there as well. I would believe Harbaugh is the first domino to drop, and we should know, I would think, in the coming days.
Can I ask something real quick, too? Yeah. Because I would love both of y'all. So if LaFleur became available, does he now become the bell of the ball? Like over Harbaugh, or you think Harbaugh's still like the first choice for everyone?
It's like Baskin-Robbins. There's 31 flavors. I don't know if everyone wants Harbaugh. In fact, I don't think every team is running to get the bell of the ball Harbaugh.
Yeah.
That might not be fit for their team. A team like the Giants that's looking for stability and someone to be building a culture and comes from that Coughlin tree of like, this is what we're looking for in our coach. That makes more sense than Matt LaFleur for the New York Giants.
I like it.
You need to talk about so many candidates are out there, but what's attractive? You asked earlier. I think the quarterback. I think there's a reason you think the Titans, like that's interesting. Well, they have a young quarterback that you've seen flashes and you can develop, it'll be really fascinating. The Harbaugh of it all, that is what every text is sort of like, where is this man going to go?
Yeah.
And when's it going to happen? And again, I believe that he's waiting out the LaFleur situation in Green Bay. Answer, what's the answer in your mind to Jeff's question? If you owned a team and you could hire John Harbaugh or Matt LaFleur, which one would you hire?
Yeah, I think I'm going to follow Peter's example and say that it depends. So, like, if I'm Tennessee, I would love Matt LaFleur. You're talking about a guy who got Aaron Rodgers back to MVP status, who developed Jordan Love to being one of the best in the league, who Malik Willis, whenever he gets out there, balls out. And I have a young, talented quarterback in Cam Ward. I would want nothing more than to have the guy who's developed these quarterbacks, who's shown an ability to continue to develop quarterbacks. That would be super attractive to me. If they re-sign him, then you go for Harbaugh, because he has the experience and the stability that you would want in an organization that hasn't had that since Vrabel was there.
It's so interesting because, and the reason I ask is because you think about these developing quarterbacks, whether it's Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, I mean, even Lamar Jackson.
Michael Penix.
Right? Yeah, Michael. When you start talking about Matt LaFleur and what he's done, like we always talk about quarterback gurus or whatever. If one guy has put that to the test and pushed it other than Sean McVay, the dude in Green Bay has done it. Backups, starters, old players, young players, all of it. Like, you've seen. So it'll be interesting, because that's why I always like the Giants.
Well, the fan response is eerily similar to the Pittsburgh one, where I think on the outside we all say, well, LaFleur, of course. But the Packer fan sees those endings to those playoff games going back to Rodgers and not letting him go for it and kicking a field goal instead.
Makes sense.
And that becomes the nonsense, I say nonsense. That becomes the nonstop conversation in Green Bay. But outside of Green Bay, you look at Matt LaFleur and you look at the success and say, I'll take that.
Yeah, the criticisms are fair. In all these cases, they're fair, but no one's perfect. You're going to get some, and I would rather, if he's available, that's what I would go for. And with Harbaugh, you don't get a strong offensive or defensive philosophy, which does give you some flexibility, but it also doesn't give you, you don't know for sure. If LaFleur comes, you know that you're getting something on that offensive. You also know you might get some game management concerns.
It made me interesting because, again, we talked about this briefly before. More than half the teams in this league will have turned over their coaches in a 12-month span. These are multi-billion-dollar businesses that are getting rid of their CEO literally every time there is a downturn. Like, anytime anything goes wrong, oh, he's great. Well, bad second half, get him out. Get Matt LaFleur the hell out of here. We got to go get someone else. No other business would be run that way, right? No other industry runs that way. And I guess it is a testament to the amount of public pressure that exists.
Absolutely.
And roster management, rookie contracts, you want to try to build something when guys are cheap. So it's a lot of pressure.
I don't know. I mean, I just think you've got... Just take it.
Viewing John Harbaugh for their head coach opening. That is the very latest from our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. So this will be Harbaugh's first in-person interview this cycle. JJ is reporting that the Giants, the Falcons, and the Tennessee Titans are considered the favorites to land Harbaugh.
The Miami Dolphins have also interviewed another hot name in the coaching cycle, former Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski. Dolphins made that announcement on Wednesday morning. Now, despite his 45-56 record during his time in Cleveland, Stefanski was named AP Coach of the Year twice, leading the Browns to 2 playoff appearances. The Dolphins have also interviewed Seahawks offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak and have reached out to several other names, including John Harbaugh. So taking a look at all of the openings in the NFL, there are 9 of them now, and there's been a lot of discussion as to which is the best one, which is the worst one. Yesterday, I almost had to separate Pete and Lige about the Steelers opening, whether that was a good one or not.
All right, so we don't have Pete, but we have Lige Duzable and Danny Cannell here with us on set, because we're going to go through what is the best, what is the worst. Before we get into it, just want to talk about what maybe separates one job from the next. The last time we saw this many, not that long ago, 21-22 season, there were 10 head coach openings. We're at 9. So, Danny, I'll come to you first. What makes one job stand out above the rest? I'm guessing if you have your franchise quarterback, that kind of might be a little
Bingo. That is a huge part of the equation. Obviously, it extends to the entirety of the roster, but if you know who your quarterback is going to be, and if you know he's somebody who you can build around is going to be there the next 5 to 10 years, that makes it a very, very attractive job. So there's also things like, draft position, cap space, General manager? Are you going in with somebody you have a relationship with? Are you going together? There's a ton that goes into it, but I do think quarterback has to be the top of the list.
Without a doubt, it's number one. And I want to touch on something you finished with, synergy between the GM and head coach. Because I don't think people really dive into that enough. DK, you're not always going to agree on every subject, but you got to be in step, right? You have to come together with a common solution for the betterment of the team. And we've seen so many storylines where, after the fact, when a coach gets fired, that him and the GM weren't on the same page. And usually you're not going to have a lot of success if the head coach and the GM do not have that synergy. So to me, after quarterback, that's the most important thing. The head coach and GM have to be in step.
Okay, so let's talk about the best openings there are. And there are some teams that do have a franchise quarterback here. Lige, I'll start with you. What is the best opening according to Lige Douzable?
To me, without a doubt, it's the Baltimore Ravens because you have Lamar Jackson. And not even just Lamar Jackson. When you look at some of the skill position players they have, and Zay Flowers, a guy that went over 1,200 yards. But the coach coming in there is going to have a guy that's a multi-time MVP. No other organization can say that right now, DK. So when you look at it, to me, the Ravens make the most sense because you have Lamar Jackson, you have Zay Flowers, you got King Henry in the backfield. So on the offensive side, you're going to get things right. Now they have to fix some things on the defensive side, but the most important thing that we talked about earlier was you got to have that franchise quarterback, and the Ravens have that.
I thought about the Ravens, but I did not go with them. I do think there's some concerns as Lamar's injuries have added up and his play's kind of tapered. Derrick Henry is getting up there in years. We've seen how running backs start to fall. I know he is. I'm just going by the course of history.
Yeah.
I might surprise you with this one because they don't have a quarterback yet, but they do have the #1 overall pick in the draft. I'm going to go with the Las Vegas Raiders. You have the #1 pick I just mentioned, so you're basically going to get Fernando Mendoza, who I think is as sure thing to or as close to a sure thing as you're going to get. There's always the risk of bust, and there's always a risk of that, but I do think he's got the mental makeup. I think from his play, his film, it's outstanding. The mobility kind of fits what teams are doing now. So you've got your quarterback, and by the way, it gives you a pass for a year or two as you're kind of developing your young quarterback. And they have a good core nucleus of talent. Max Crosby on the defensive side of the ball. You got Brock Bowers, who is one of the best young tight ends. You got Genty, who looks like he could be a featured back. And you have a ton of cap space to play. And I do think because of the laundry list of bad hires that they've made, I think that actually would give you some extra time. And you mentioned continuity. What better way to have Tom Brady put a more concerted effort into building the Raiders, going around it. And also, by the way, maybe being able to mentor a young quarterback like Fernando Mendoza. So for me, I think the Raiders are very attractive.
Okay. I was going to say, I like that pick. The only concern is, and you brought it up, right? Right now, that organization is paying 3 other coaches. Right? So it's like there hasn't been continuity when it comes to the head coaching position. They will move on from you quick. So if you're a coach going there, you would probably like to have a deal where it's like 5 or 6 years where there's some skin in the game where, like, they're going to give me some time to build this up. Because you talked about it. There are a lot of holes on this team. They do have Brock Bowers. They do have Max Crosby. But besides that, there's a lot of holes on this team. And to DK's point, they have a ton of cap space to spend to bring in free agents, but it's going to take a while to get that team together.
And in that division?
It is the hardest division in football.
But we've seen before, like, things kind of turned upside down. The season's been incredibly unpredictable. And I totally get what you're saying, Amanda, but I don't think any coach looks at any job. Like, of all the things we mentioned, we didn't mention, like, competitive nature of the division. I think coaches, the mentality is I can beat anybody. I can go and win. But good luck getting past Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. But that could be slowing down.
Yeah, it did slow down this year.
This year, for sure.
Yep.
And so now let's get to the worst ones. Lige, what, in your opinion, is maybe one of the worst jobs that are out there right now?
So I'll mention two, and I think me and DK are in step with this one. The Miami Dolphins. One, because Tua Tagovailoa is guaranteed $54 million no matter what next year. So you have to figure out, is he going to be a part of the future, or are you going to move on from him? And then when you look at it, they're already over the cap. And then Tyreek Hill, what are you going to do with him? Because if you cut him, it's a dead cap hit as well. So going into that scenario, you literally are over the cap. You don't probably know who your quarterback is going to be. And then when you just look at the players on this roster, like, there's a lot that you have to do to turn this roster over to be a competitor in the AFC East. So to me, this is one of the worst jobs. And I think Arizona is the next one because of the same situation with Kyler Murray. And the Arizona Cardinals, whoever takes that job, they actually might have to keep Kyler Murray because when you look at it, DK, it's not a strong free agent market when it comes to the quarterback position. And then the draft got weaker again with Dante Moore going back to school. So you may not get your quarterback in this draft. So there's not a lot of options out there. You may be stuck with Kyler Murray. So I think, to me, those are the two worst spots if you're a head coach looking for a new job.
I really wanted to make a case for the Dolphins to be like a good landing spot. And I would love for them to get John Harbaugh. And we've seen that there's a strong interest in there. And I think that's why they hired Mike McDaniel. But one of the reasons why I think the Dolphins are the worst job is they probably have screwed this up. Like, they probably aren't guaranteed to get John Harbaugh, so they fired Mike McDaniel, and now they're going to be like, what do we do now? And they're just going to hire somebody because they have to. The ownership, the higher-ups, it just feels like a dysfunctional organization. From everything that they've made over the past 5 years, it feels reactionary. They've got Tua under contract, as you mentioned. They're in a horrible cap position as far as being able to go get free agents. They've got the Tyreek Hill headache that they have to deal with that is not resolved yet. It's a mess in Miami, and I would love to see this organization turn around. As somebody who grew up rooting for this organization, just in talking to Dolphins fans, there's so little hope. I do think John Harbaugh is what they need, some stability, somebody with a reputation that brings some credibility to what's been the laughingstock of the NFL, and yet I have zero faith that they get it done.
So let me ask you this, though, because earlier this week, and this is before the Steelers thing happened, but still it was when there were 8 openings, and I'm so sorry, I forget who it was, but we asked multiple people, where does John Harbaugh land? Everyone said Miami out of our experts. So why is that the answer, and do you still stand by that if you ever did?
Oh, I think it's the answer because he's
not the answer for the Dolphins, the answer for John Harbaugh. Like, we asked people, we asked a lot of our experts.
Why would the Dolphins be the answer?
Yeah, and
I don't think it is.
And
by the way, if John Harbaugh wanted the Dolphins job, he would have already taken it. You know, and I know he said he wanted to take some time, but he's also making these evaluations. What are the best options available? He knows what's at stake, his legacy. He wants to add another Super Bowl.
Correct.
And he's looking at this, and while South Florida's a great place to live, it's great weather, it's just not a great place. I think it's a very risky job for a coach of his stature to take because it could tarnish his legacy if he only lasts 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think it would be tough for him to come down here to everything that DK said, right? He's trying to, cement that legacy, right? He had so much success in Baltimore. Coming down here, he literally would have to build this thing up from the ground up. And again, they're already cap-strapped, so it's going to be tough for them to bring in free agents of like mind that John Harbaugh wants to bring in to change the culture on this roster. I think the Giants make a lot of sense for him. And I've heard that supposedly Brian Daboll, the ex-Giant coach, is called the Giants and called John Harbaugh and saying, you should take this job. So I know the Maurer family probably has an affinity with John Harbaugh. I think he'd be a great fit in New York.
I don't know. People are very lucky. Like, we're on week 20, basically, of the NFL. I don't know who the experts were who said that because it's somewhere on air. I'm going to find out, and I'm going to report them.
Got the receipt.
Exactly. Really quickly, Danny, where do the Steelers land for you? Because, like I said yesterday, Pete and Leger, whether it was a
I'm
good
going to
job
guess
or
Leger
a
was
bad
towards
job.
the top of the pack.
No.
Wait, it was
No?
if it was a good or bad job opening.
So I think it's toward the top of the heap.
Really?
Like, I don't think it's towards the bottom. I didn't consider it for number 1 or 2, but I do think they're not as bad off as we think. They do have the 21st overall pick, and I think Ty Simpson, who said he's coming out in the draft, would actually be a young quarterback that they could get at that spot and then slowly start to build around and finally find a quarterback that they draft high and they stick with. I know it didn't work out with Kenny Pickett. That pick to me was way riskier than what Ty Simpson is. You've got cap space to spend. You've got an organization which will stick with you. Like, they've only had 3 coaches. That's been well documented. I think it's got a winning tradition. I think it's a pretty healthy locker room from the standpoint of what you're going to be working with.